Hello and welcome back to the booth. My name is Emma and I'm your narrator next door. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how I got into audiobook narration. Every time I watch an interview with an audiobook narrator, like a big name audiobook narrator, they all seem to say the same thing, and that's that they just sort of fell into audiobook narration. And I know I'm not a big name audiobook narrator, and nor do I pretend to be, but it always felt very like you had to be invited in, sort of thing, and you really don't. So I just wanted to share with you my story in the hopes that if it's something you're interested in getting into, it makes you see that it's perfectly possible. So, where to begin? Well, I went to uni in Cardiff to do a music production and technology course, which I hoped would lead to a job in audio post-production, which, if you think about it, that course actually doesn't have that much to do with audio post-production. But there were crossovers, and while I couldn't see it at the time, it has helped me along the way, and it actually helps me more now than it did in the job that that I wanted to get with it. So it's a funny one, really, because you don't actually, I probably didn't need to go to uni to do this job, but I am of the generation that was taught that, you know, if you want a good job, you go to uni. So that's what I did, and I didn't take I realised I look ridiculous, sorry. And I didn't take a gap year, which I should have done, because I was just very much bored of learning. I think I had one good year in uni where I studied hard and was really interested and, you know, did what I should have been doing in uni. And then it all just sort of went downhill from there. Anyway, so I got my degree, I left uni, and within a year I managed to get a job in the industry that I wanted. I was a technical operator in a TV and film post-production company, which was great. That was exactly what I wanted. I was on the right path. I was going to be an audio engineer or doing Foley or anything like that. I think Foley was my main draw. I really I find it very fascinating. Like, you're building worlds. It's like you watch a children's cartoon and it's silent. So like Postman Pat, there's nothing there. And you have to create that world with audio. And I find it fascinating, and I absolutely love doing it. I'm not very good at talking while I do this. And then 6 years later, I was still in that job. I think the moment I realised I was probably not going to get promoted anytime soon was when they referred to me as a safe pair of hands, which is, while it's lovely, I was training people up for them to be able to go and have the opportunities that I was then missing out on. So I was training people to move forward, and I was never being given that opportunity, or I never felt able to take the opportunities. I don't know, it was probably me as well. But yeah, so 6 years later, still in the same job, still being paid minimum wage. Lovely. And these jobs are all minimum wage because you want to do the job. Boring jobs will be paid really well because no one wants to do them. They'll happily do them for the money. Whereas if you have a creative job that you want to do, they can get away with paying you nothing because you want to do it to be able to get to the job that you want to do, if that made any sense. Long story short, I ended up moving companies to another TV and film post-production house, and that was going well until it wasn't. I told them I was pregnant, and which all seemed fine It was all good until I bought my first house and had 2 weeks off. And then when I came back, my boss stood there and had one of my bosses, I should say, she had 2 envelopes, one in each hand. And she basically said, "Congratulations, here's your maternity information," and handed me one envelope. And then in the same breath said, as she handed me the second envelope, "You're under investigation." So I didn't know what that meant at the time, but basically, before they can give you a disciplinary, you have to go through what is called an investigation meeting. So yes, I had that delightful meeting to go through. That was probably one of the most traumatic hours of my working career. I pretty much walked out of it. I remember feeling so attacked and so alone. And I literally had someone growing inside of me. This woman hated me. That was made very clear, which is fine. You know, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But yeah, it was just awful. I walked out of that meeting and basically broke down. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. I went for an early lunch. I managed to hold it together. Went into my office with the other people that I was working with and just said, "Do you mind if I take an early lunch? I just need a minute." And they were really good about it. They were like, "Yeah, sure." And I just broke down for a solid hour. And I knew at that point, I knew she wanted to try and fire me. And she did actually say in all the many other meetings that came afterwards, she's been here for less than 2 years. I can do what I want, which sent the union rep speechless. So I'm glad it wasn't just me. But yeah, I had to join a union halfway through because the company was only 10 people big and she had involved everybody. And she wouldn't let me bring anyone from outside of the company into the meeting. You either had to be a member of the company or a union representative. So I had no choice. I had to join a union because I was pregnant, I was hormonal. I didn't know what the hell was going on. But yeah, so shout out to Carwin from Beck 2 because I do not think I'd have made it through without him. But the thing that got me most about the whole thing was the fact that she had become a grandmother 3 months prior. So yeah, that was interesting. So I managed to make it to the end of my pregnancy without losing my job. And I go off on maternity leave and I have my biggest little. And then it came to her turning 1 and the topic of going back to work. And yes, the thought, I already knew that I wanted another child, and the thought of going through all of that again, it just wasn't good. Like the whole situation, it was really stressful. And she'd just done an absolute number on my mental well-being. And my self-confidence, really. She made me feel very incompetent at a job I knew I was good at. And yeah, she just made me doubt my self-worth entirely. And the thought of paying for somebody else to look after my child so that I can go and have the privilege of spending time with this woman again, just didn't sit well with me. I also couldn't afford to go back to work, which is an interesting one. I never thought I'd be a stay-at-home mum. I always thought I'd be working. My mum worked 2 jobs when I was little. I don't think before having my girls, I don't think I've ever not worked, like all the way through uni. Yeah, it was just built into me that, you know, if you want to be able to go on holiday and do nice things, you've gotta work for it. So yeah, the thought of being a stay-at-home mum had never occurred to me. But luckily, my husband very kindly allowed me to be, I say allowed me, I'd have been paying to commute to work, took care of all the bills and took on that responsibility of being the only financial income for the household. So I didn't need to worry too much about finding a job. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like, the whole industry had sort of been ruined for me by that point. I'd done projects that required insane amounts of overtime. The shift work was just, I mean, sometimes I wasn't coming home until like 3-4 in the morning. And to do that with kids just doesn't seem, I mean, you didn't as an audio engineer. They all went home at whatever time. But as an edit assistant or an audio assistant, you were expected to be there until production had left. And they apparently did not like to go home. So the thought of doing that with a child, like, I had new priorities. I just wanted to spend as much time as I could with my little girl. So I was a bit stuck and I felt a bit lost after having my first. I wasn't okay anyway, like, at all. Like, I couldn't even go in the shower and take a normal amount of time. Like, I would rush through a shower because what if she needed me? Like, she was with her dad, like, she was perfectly fine. But I just didn't trust anyone with her. And I don't know why. Like, I wasn't like that with my second. I don't know if that's like a first and a second thing. But yeah. So I didn't go back to work. I was a stay-at-home mum, which felt very wrong on every level. Every fibre of my being didn't sit well with being a stay-at-home mum. As much as I absolutely loved spending time with her, I felt so guilty all the time. And I couldn't spend any money. Like, I couldn't go out. I could, buy food for the house, buy things for my daughter, but I wouldn't have been able to go out and just get a coffee because I hadn't earned that money. Like, yeah, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so then I had my second, and that was an entirely different experience. While my first was a really nice pregnancy, and in the sense of I felt well in myself, everything else was getting at me. When I fell pregnant with my second, we'd just gone into lockdown, and I think I fell pregnant and then we went into lockdown, which was delightful. And I had morning sickness until about week 23. That was horrific. I'm not a fan of throwing up anyway. So anyway, I have my second child, and suddenly, as wild as it all is, that was an insane home birth actually. Because of lockdown, we didn't want to go into hospital because I could just see it. Like, Tim's parents lived an hour away, my parents lived 2 hours away. We were only allowed one other person with you when you were giving birth. So Tim would have had to either stay with Artie until one of our parents got here to take her and look after her. And I could just see it. Like, he'd be outside in the car park of the hospital while I gave birth, and we didn't want that. So I was lucky enough, other than the morning sickness, I was healthy. It was a low risk birth, so we opted to have her at home, and it's a good job really because she arrived in like 2 hours. The midwife didn't even make it in time. We would never have gone to hospital. We never have made it to hospital. So yeah, so I have Phoebes, and suddenly I feel like myself again. Like, and back to being me. And it was wild, like the way that it changes you. And yeah, I was suddenly doing all the things that I enjoyed doing again. Like I was getting back into doing yoga. I really enjoyed doing yoga, and I'd stopped. And yeah, it was just, and it was actually while I was doing yoga, I was doing a yoga with Adrian, and I was thinking to myself, like, I really need to go back to work. Like, we didn't need, but you know, I didn't want him to be stressed, and I wanted a way to keep like the skills that I had sharp, so that when I did go back to work, it wouldn't be such a massive learning curve again. I wouldn't feel like I was a fish out of water sort of thing. So I remember like thinking to myself throughout this yoga flow, what do I want to do? What are the things that I really enjoy doing? I thought I enjoy reading. Maybe I could go work in publishing. That'd be great. But then the thought of I know they don't have time to read all the stories that come in. So they'll start reading and have to stop. And that hurts my soul. The thought of having 1,000 started books and not actually finishing any of them, just really, it didn't speak to me. So then the other thing was, I was like, well, I want to keep my audio skills up. So what can I do, that I can do from home audio wise? And I thought YouTube. But that just seemed like too much. I didn't want to have to deal with like the whole visual aspect. Although I was an editor assistant, it wasn't something I felt confident with. So I thought then, right, well, a podcast. And I thought, what am I going to talk about? I didn't feel like I had anything to talk about. So I was like, I need to read, like, I'd like to read somebody else's words. And I was in Downward Dog when I thought, audiobook narration. Why have I never thought of that before? And initially, I was just it wasn't even going to be for anyone else. It was just going to be for myself. I was going to narrate some books. I thought probably public domain, and then I could put them somewhere and no one would yell at me. But yeah, and then the more I looked into it, the more I thought, no, I could actually do this. I could actually be an audiobook narrator. So I did a lot of research and I started practicing reading out loud just for like 20 minutes a day initially. And then I think it was a Jane Austen book I was practicing on, Northanger Abbey. If you can read Northanger Abbey, or any Jane Austen book really, or any book of that period, out loud, making minimal mistakes, I think you'll do just fine. And yeah, I did my research. I gathered some text for samples. I found some scenes that I enjoyed that I could record for samples. I set myself up with a profile on ACX, which is Amazon's audio creation exchange. Is it Audiobook Creation Exchange? It's basically a place where indie authors can go and post their books and say they are open to creating an audiobook and they'd really like narrators to audition for them. Or they can reach out to narrators directly. We all have a profile on there, so you can search through, listen to samples, and message the audiobook narrators you like. Because I can only imagine if you post a book, you're probably going to get quite a few auditions sent your way, and that's a lot to wade through. But yeah, so you can be more selective about it if you want to. When my youngest was 5 months old, I went on there. I found a book that I liked the look of. Yes, I was judging books by their cover. And I sent off the audition and I got it. and that was The Folly on the Hill by Richard Haydn. And then I immediately went into a spiral because now I had to create this audiobook, and could I do it? And all of this madness. I knew I could do it. I knew the basics. I was in the privileged position of already knowing how to edit audio, already having tools I'd bought. So my youngest was born in December, and then for my birthday in February, I'd been given by Tim's parents a £50 Amazon voucher, and I used that to buy my first, what did I buy? I bought a USB condenser mic. I think it was a Sub-Zero. Tim had very kindly, I'd said to him when I'd first had the idea, you know, I'd really like to do audiobooks. What do you think? And he had been in the middle of building us wardrobes in our bedroom, and he had sneakily changed it so that the corner wardrobe was big enough for me to sit in it, basically. And yeah, so he'd done that. He then put a desk in it for me. I sound treated the space with carpet and acoustic foam, and yeah, it was just, we got it all set up with a monitor in there and a lead out so that I could see what I was recording, basically. Although actually no, that first book, we hadn't set up the monitor in there, so my laptop was outside. In fact, I was using Tim's laptop because I didn't even have a laptop at that time. So Tim's laptop was sat outside of the wardrobe, and I was just recording the whole thing open roll, which was a nightmare. It took so long, but I did it, and I got it all done, and I was so proud of myself by the time I'd finished and submitted that audiobook. I had so much fun. I loved prepping it. I loved recording it. I was standing for the whole thing as well. So this is was it a 7-hour book? I think it was a 7-hour audiobook to record, and I was recording open roll. It was my first one. It was probably taking me, just for recording, probably 3 to 1. So 3 hours to get one final finished audiobook hour. Now I'm about 2 to 1. So it might have even been longer than that. But basically, it was a long time to be standing up in a wardrobe, recording. Every time I moved, I had to redo that line, because obviously you can't have any extraneous sounds. And yeah, so editing it with all of the mistakes in. I look back now and I think, what an idiot. But I learnt a lot from doing that audiobook, and I had the best time, and I knew that this was something that I wanted to continue with, and that I just absolutely adored. I highly recommend it to everyone. Anyone who loves reading, loves storytelling, loves just being extra with it, then audiobooks are probably for you. But yeah, so that is my story. That is how I came to be here. And yeah, if it's something you're interested in, you can definitely do it. My youngest is now 5, so it's definitely been a slow journey for me, but that's fine. That's exactly how I wanted it. I didn't have the capacity to move any faster than I have, and yeah, this year we're moving a little bit faster, and I hope you'll join me. Bye. See you.